by the armpits. I did not quite follow or understand.
Not a Pax Americana.
The India-Pakistan War of 1971, also known as the Bangladesh Liberation War, was a revolution and military struggle, precipitated by the growth of the Bengali nationalist and self-determination movement, in what was then East Pakistan. Following India's division in 1947, the east wing of Bengal became East Pakistan, with around 1,200 miles of Indian territory between the two halves of Pakistan. Furthermore, Pakistan's military administration paid little attention to East Pakistan, and Urdu was forced on it. The refusal of the premiership to Sheikh Mujibur Rahman of East Bengal, whose party had won 160 out of 300 seats in the 1970 elections, was the immediate subject of contention. East Bengal was denied rights by Pakistani leaders Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and President Yahya Khan. The Pakistani army attacked the Bengali independence movement at night on March 25, 1971. The vicious and brutal armed action was called Operation Searchlight. Pakistan has practically transformed Bangladesh into a hell, attempting to impose their superiority in language and Islamic fanaticism. Extensive military operations and air attacks were carried out in rural and urban areas throughout East Pakistan to stem the tide of public disobedience. The Pakistan Army, with the support of Islamists, formed extremist religious militias, known as the Razakars, al-Badr, and al-Shams, to help it during attacks on the local people. Members of Pakistan's military and allied militias committed mass murder, deportation, and genocidal rapes. Numerous atrocities occurred in Dhaka, notably Operation Searchlight, and many Bengali students and intellectuals were fired upon and detained at Dhaka University. Mujibur Rahman was apprehended and transported to West Pakistan. As a result, millions of Bangladeshis have fled to India, primarily to West Bengal, Assam, Meghalaya, and Tripura. Mukti Bahini, a Bengali armed resistance movement, sprung up against the Pakistan army, and Indian soldiers assisted them with weaponry and training. On December 16, Pakistan's Eastern Command commander signs the Instrument of Surrender, and Mujibur Rahman was freed from prison in January to become Bangladesh's first prime minister. Because of its tumultuous relationship with Pakistan, India has a critical strategic reason to assist Bangladesh. A victory for the Bengali struggle meant that India's eastern border would be tranquil. And, as an urgent factor, the refugee situation was posing a significant economic strain on India. Pakistan is currently on the same course as Bangladesh, reproducing its era in Balochistan. The movement has acquired fresh strength since the 2006 aerial strike that resulted in the death of Baloch leader Akbar Khan Bugti, which prompted the army to respond even more brutally. The Pakistani army stepped up its kill and dump policy, with zero tolerance against Baloch people. The human rights atrocities of the Balochi people, a separate ethnic and linguistic community, have been one of the most underreported topics to date. Many observers refer to Balochistan as the second Bangladesh because the manner of incarceration, torture, extrajudicial death, disappearance, and economic exploitation resembles Pakistani oppressions that occurred during and before Bangladesh's liberation struggle. Many in civil society think that the army's policy of isolating and silencing its own people from Balochistan could create a situation similar to that of the late 1960s, when Pakistan carried out a vicious wave of suppression against Bengali Muslims on the basis of language and lost East Pakistan. The army has a significant grip on people's life in Balochistan. To manage the land and inhabitants, the army enforced its own laws. The scenario is identical in practically all districts of Balochistan province. All male members of the districts above the age of 12 are questioned once or twice a week at the local military camp. It is required under army rules. Aside from that, civilians in certain Balochistan regions are not even permitted to conduct funerals without the clearance of the military. Even going to a nearby town to buy basic supplies requires army clearance. According to different estimates, around 5,000 Baloch men and women have disappeared in recent years. Countless political and student activists have been killed extrajudicially since 2009. The rapid increase in the abduction of Baloch students and others is the result of Chinese concerns about the multi-billion-dollar China-Pakistan economic corridor projects. With the Pakistan army guaranteeing the Chinese of security in Balochistan, assaults on young and older Baloch men and women are expected to skyrocket in the coming days. Another reason for the army's oppression of the Baloch people is to prevent a new generation of Baloch leaders from rising from the ranks of university students. Can Pakistan defeat the Baloch liberation struggle? Pakistan's efforts to resist the Baloch struggle for a free and sovereign state may be effective in the short term, but when the political and armed struggles of Balochistan are examined, Islamabad has been unable to combat the indigenous Baloch struggle in the long run. Since 2000, nearly every spokesman for the Pakistani army has stated that there are few rebels in Balochistan and that they will be crushed shortly. Time has demonstrated that their assertions were untrue, as Baloch insurgents have become stronger in Balochistan and more lethal in their operations against Pakistani domination. What is known today as Balochistan, a region of Pakistan bordering Afghanistan and Iran, was known as Kalat during the British era. Few people are aware that Balochistan Independence Day is observed on August 11th. Under British supervision, a standstill agreement was made on this day in 1947 between the Khan of Kalat and Pakistan, recognizing Kalat as an independent state. However, Khan of Kalat was under intense pressure from Pakistan to become a part of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan between October 1947 and February 1948. The Baloch parliament voted that it will continue to exist separately. However, the Pakistani army advanced into the Pasni, Jiwani, and Turbat coastal regions in March 1948, and Kalat was pressured into merging Balochistan with Pakistan, a decision taken under duress, as its parliament had already rejected the merger. Will India support Balochistan in the same way that it assisted Bangladesh?
Actually, it's demand of Baloch people, it's appeal of Baloch people, always from India to intervene, like they intervened in Bangladesh.
Overseas Baloch activists pleaded with India for assistance in achieving Balochistan's independence, just as it had done for Bangladesh. India hasn't really developed a strategy to leverage the Baloch's resentment to spark an effective liberation movement. Prime Minister Narendra Modi lit the fuse in his 2016 Independence Day speech from the courtyard of historic Red Fort in New Delhi. In that speech, Modi made a significant policy shift by addressing the people of Balochistan, Gilgit, and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, which infuriated Islamabad, where the words were viewed as an infringement on Pakistani sovereignty. Many individuals believe that Prime Minister Modi's mention to Balochistan in his Independence Day address was meaningful for the Balochi people. The Balochi activists, who had applauded Modi's remarks, holding demonstrations in front of China's embassy in the UK. They were protesting the China-Pakistan economic corridor, which runs through Balochistan. India understands that internationalizing the Balochistan problem raises the expenses of the China-Pakistan economic corridor. So, would India go all in and pursue Balochistan's independence at some point in the future? This appears improbable at the moment, because India stands with Balochistan, but the rest of the world does not. The United States has made it clear that it opposes Balochistan's independence. On July 2, 2019, the United States recognized the Baloch Liberation Army as a global terrorist group. And direct intervention by India would result in a full-fledged conflict, maybe even nuclear escalation. Regardless of whether we like it or not. However, engagement would be pointless unless the Baluchis banded together and sought India's assistance in getting involved, as the Bangladeshis did. Why is India the only country capable of assisting Balochistan? Because nobody will. Americans have no desire to assist them. America suffered moral damage as a result of Biden's bungled exit from Afghanistan. Russia is unreachable now. because the war has already wilted it militarily and economically. It would be years before Russia could stand on its own 2 feet again. The European Union seems unconcerned about this issue, although then EU Vice President Ryszard Czarnecki threatened Pakistan with economic and political consequences in 2016 if it did not end human rights violations in the province. However, the warning had little effect on Pakistan. More significantly, Iran, which shares a border with Balochistan, is unlikely to support the notion, as it would spark instability in Iran, which has a sizable ethnic Baloch population. The inclusion of Balochistan in Prime Minister Modi's address was a symbolic move, since Modi mentioned it during India's Independence Day celebrations. Balochistan is vital to India because of its strategic position, strategic minerals, and strategic energy resources. Balochistan is sometimes referred to as Pakistan's soft underbelly, where Pakistan's nukes are hidden. As a major regional power, India has a duty to publicly condemn Pakistan for its poor human rights record in the area. India must also carefully consider the ramifications of a disintegrated Pakistan versus a united Pakistan for South Asian peace and security, since if Balochistan secedes, Sindh would soon follow, followed by the Pashtuns. Another concern for Indian strategists is the possibility of their nuclear weapons being abused. What India can do right now is bring up Balochistan in debates with the Pakistanis because it makes them squirm. While Balochistan may help India sock it to Pakistan, every time they mention Kashmir, it accomplishes nothing for the Balochistan. Balochistan may serve as tremendous leverage for India against Pakistan, and as such, it can be used as a negotiation tool to force Pakistan to back down from their actions within India. Another reason to support the Baloch independence movement is because it is the proper thing to do, a moral necessity and responsibility that must be met.